Always got to be careful when you're out there booking that charter. You never know what you're going to get, whether it's going to be a well-qualified captain or you're going to get one of them full send boys. Welcome back, guys, to this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us up to Grand Rapids, Michigan, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago when these scary images were caught on camera when two people were knocked off their jet ski near a dam on the Grand River. The two were on the jet ski and actually fell off on top of the dam. They tried to get back onto the ski, but unfortunately could not do so before going over the falls. One of the jet skiers looks like they got lucky and made it just past the recirculation point. These low-head dams are notorious for having strong currents, as there's a recirculation point at the base of the dam that if you fall off close enough is going to keep dragging you back toward the falls, putting you in a very dangerous situation, as we can see here. Fortunately, our guy's got a life jacket on, and it appears he's in shallow enough water that he's able to put his feet down at times and be able to stand up while the crew comes in to try and rescue him. If you ever find yourself in one of these situations, you really have to be cautious, but one of the best methods you can use is to try and grab a line. You don't want to put yourself back close to the falls and risk yourself going into the recirculation point as well. But if you grab a line, you try and toss it back to the person who's in trouble, let them grab that line and then pull them out. Here our guy does wind up getting out of this successfully, and here we'll see the rescue. One of the jet skis finally is able to get in close enough to him to help pull him out. But here, once again, lessons are learned on this one. This is definitely not the type of place I would recommend going and taking a jet ski to. Sure, these guys look like they're out there having a ton of fun, but it's still wintertime. That water is cold, and if you fall in, you're going to find yourself having a difficult time trying to get back out. But here, our guys pulled out without injury, and they'll move back on their way. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Hawaii, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago as well, when two tourists found themselves in a little bit of mischief as they were driving around looking for a snorkeling tour, when the next thing they know, they made their own snorkeling tour. They were following their GPS and wound up driving straight down a boat ramp and right into the harbor. Here in these images, you can tell the two tourists are absolutely stunned and confused as they try and determine the best course of action. Fortunately, there are several sailors on the dock who wind up jumping in to try and talk these two out of the van. Here the tourists can be seen getting out of the van, while the sailors are even attaching lines to the rear axle of the van to try and pull it back up to the boat ramp. One of the biggest surprises on this one is how well this van actually floats. Many of you know we have the Miami Boat Ramps channel, and we've caught several cars sinking. And one of the big things I will note is a lot of the newer vehicles that we've seen sink, this has been a big surprise to me as well. Most of them actually float for quite some time before finally going down, especially if you leave the doors closed. But you leave them in the water long enough, it's not going to matter. Eventually they are going to go under and you're not going to be able to stop it, kind of like here. But once again, the two passengers were able to get out of the van successfully. No injuries were reported except for the loss of one rental car. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to Georgia, where this was the scene just a few days ago near St. Catherine Sound, when the United States Coast Guard successfully rescued two individuals and a dog after their vessel started taking on water near the mouth of the sound. As soon as the crew realized their vessel was taking on water, they issued an emergency distress call to the Coast Guard.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. 16, Pisces, St. Catherine Sound. Mayday, mayday, mayday. 16, Pisces, St. Catherine Sound.
The Coast Guard Station Tybee and the Georgia Department of Natural Resources responded to the call for help. During the initial communication, the boaters were able to successfully give the coordinates of their location to the Coast Guard, but they also had a personal locator beacon on board, making life for the Coast Guard just that much easier. They were able to track their location the entire time, and the two boaters and the dog were successfully pulled off the sinking vessel without injury. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know when you might see your stories over here. Just like Dennis Unitas, Christy Hutchinson, Byron Larson, and Jake Cuker did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.